It is February 26th of the year 1870 in the town of Graham, North Carolina, and a man named Wyatt Outlaw is being kidnapped from his home by a mob of men in pointed white robes, numbering around 70 to 100. Outlaw had been serving in public office and was mixed race. He became a target for the KKK because he was seen as a good leader and was working with both white and black residents of the town. The Klan took Outlaw to the Alamance County Courthouse Square and hung him. This event would spark a wave of violence through multiple North Carolina counties. 2 weeks later, another black man named William Puryear was found dead in a mill pond, reportedly having witnessed Outlaw's murder. On March 7th, North Carolina Governor William Holden proclaimed a state of insurrection in Alamance County, sending 40 federal soldiers from Raleigh and issuing 12 warrants. Holden then wrote to President Ulysses S. Grant for aid, asking for permission to suspend habeas corpus and implement martial law. Grant sent more soldiers but did not respond. Meanwhile, in Caswell County, violence escalated as at least 21 black and white Republicans were flogged by Klansmen between April 2nd and May 15th, and a black man named Robin Jacobs was murdered near Leesburg on May 13th. On May 21st of 1870, Republican State Senator John Stevens came here to the Caswell County Courthouse alongside former Democratic Sheriff Frank Wiley. However, Wiley had set a trap for him, and there was around 10 to 15 men waiting for him there. One of the men held a rope around Stevens' neck, while another one of the men came and stabbed Stevens, murdering him. Upon not returning, Stevens' family and friends came looking for him here and found his body locked up in the room as the Klansmen had left it there, planning to retrieve it and remove it later that night. On May 25th, Governor Holden denounced Stevens' death and ordered a meeting be held in Raleigh to discuss the violence that was happening in Caswell and Alamance counties. It was decided to have a militia made in order to come to the counties to stop the violence. It was decided that the state militia could not be used as it had likely been infiltrated by the Klan, and the black militia was not used because it was decided that might spark more violence from the Klan. Therefore, they decided to gather a militia of men coming from Western North Carolina, as Western North Carolina held Republican sympathies and did not largely have slaves back in the day. Governor Holden picked a man named George Washington Kirk to lead this militia. Kirk had led Union forces during the Civil War and had led anti-Klan operations in Tennessee following the war. Thus, he was deemed qualified to lead the newly formed militia, dubbed the 2nd North Carolina State Militia. On July 13th, Holden dispatched Kirk's militia, which swept through Alamance County making arrests before making it to Yanceyville, which Kirk made his main base of operations. Forces were also dispatched to Roxborough, Graham, Ruffin, and there were even forces in Raleigh itself. Upon reaching Yanceyville, Kirk found politicians James Madison Leach and William Scott engaged in a debate, where Kirk's men surrounded the courthouse and swept into it, arresting many, including Leach, to Scott's protest. Despite the arrests and Holden's attempts to suspend habeas corpus and declare martial law in Alamance and Caswell counties, the men who were arrested appealed to the North Carolina Supreme Court, to which Holden demanded that Kirk ignore. However, when the men appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court, Holden was forced to abide by the demand to get the men habeas corpus, and the arrestees were divided into two parties. One was to be tried in Raleigh, and the other was to be tried in Salisbury. In the ensuing election, which Kirk's men monitored, the Democrats won a stark majority, much to Holden's dismay. This was largely due to Klan intimidation and Holden's acts being seen as tyrannical. In late August, the last accused Klansmen were released, and on September 21st, Holden's militia was disbanded. The insurrection was declared over on November 10th. Kirk and Holden's names were dragged through the mud, and the event became known as the Kirk Holden War. Kirk needed escort by U.S. Marshal back to Raleigh fearing retaliation, and later went to D.C., where he stayed as a police officer. Holden, however, had 8 articles of impeachment levied against him. Holden was impeached from office on March 22nd of 1871, being the first governor impeached and removed from office in U.S. history. Holden was in Washington, D.C. on the day of his impeachment, trying to meet with Grant to warn him of the failure of Reconstruction in North Carolina. Following the war, Klan activities ceased in Caswell and Alamance Counties, but the Republican Party of North Carolina was devastated by Holden's impeachment. Holden was pardoned in 2011 in a unanimous vote. Thanks for watching. This is where the old Alamance County Courthouse bell was memorialized, but it looks like it was gone. This is the bell from the courthouse that would have been here at the time of Wyatt Outlaw's murder.